Okay, we are recording, and I'm also going to go live on my Instagram just for people who may be joining me live on Instagram. Okay, hi everyone. Hello. Who's ready to talk about sleep? Everybody. My name is Emily Varon. I am a board certified behavior analyst. I've been working in the field of behavior intervention for 21 years, and I've been dedicating the last 11 years specifically to sleep and autism and adult sleep and neurotypical sleep and just all things sleep over the last 11 years. I've been working very hard to spread the word on sleep and wellness and how important sleep is for our bodies and why we need it and why we shouldn't neglect it and why it gets hard sometimes. So I'm going to mute everybody. Mute. And I'm going to share my screen. And just a reminder, once I share my screen, I won't be able to see you guys. So just go ahead and direct message me. I will chat. I will answer questions at the end. Let me just clean up my screen a little bit. Let me get everybody in the right places so I can see myself. Excellent. Okay. All right. Sleep and wellness. Let's get started. I am on Instagram, you guys, Ready, Set, Sleep with an underscore. For those of you who are joining me on Instagram right now, it might be easier for the Zoom. I'm not going to be taking questions from Instagram. I'm going to be taking questions through the Zoom, through the private chat. So if you are tuning in, the link is in my bio in Instagram. So just go to my Instagram account and click the link in my bio. It's the first option. You can just join the Zoom. If you want, that's probably just easier. You guys also won't get the benefit of the slides. So if you want to see the slides, come on over into the Zoom. Go ahead and click that in the link in my bio. Okay, let's talk about sleep. Oops, these went in the backwards order. Okay, so what happens during sleep? Why do we sleep? What is sleep and the human condition? Okay, when we sleep, our brain detoxes. That's a biggie. That's not like woo-woo detox. I'm gonna like drink juice for 7 days. That means that our brains actually have a whole separate system called the glymphatic system. This is actually a recent neurological discovery in the last 5 years, that there's actually this whole separate system that detoxes only while we are in deep sleep. Only while we're in deep sleep. So if we're not getting those deep phases of sleep, our brain isn't affording itself the opportunity to detox. So we need to rid our bodies, our brains of the neurotoxins that build up during the day as we experience emotions, as we experience new images, as we have new textures, context, all that sensory stuff. Our brain fills with neurotoxins, and then our brain detoxes it when we sleep, and only when we sleep. So if you take anything away from any of this, the brain detoxing during deep sleep is probably the most important thing that I like for people to have information on. The glymphatic system with the G. Our liver detoxes, our immune system regenerates. Why do we get sick all the time if we're not sleeping? Well, it's because our immune system isn't working in tip-top shape, because it's not being afforded all of the opportunities it needs to actually regenerate while we are also in deep sleep. You guys, deep sleep is so important. Our nutrients break down. Digestion kicks into high gear. Our cells absorb all that nutrition. It gets sorted into the toxins, the needed and the not needed waste. And it kicks into high gear. When we sleep, we actually, as we're falling asleep, we actually lower our body temperature a little bit, because it's going to ramp up later at night. Our engine turns on super hot when we sleep. That's why sometimes we fall asleep cold, but then in the middle of the night, we like throw everything off because we're so hot. And that's why children don't keep their blankets on either, because they get hot. Our engines turn on. We do a lot of heavy lifting while we're sleeping, while we don't even know it. Muscles repair and regenerate. Our dreams, we have to dream. Our dreams happen in our lightest phases of sleep. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's important for us to spend some time in those lighter phases of sleep because our dreams regulate our emotions, right? If we're stressed out and anxious and we have all the things happening, we need those dream stages. That helps our emotional well-being, right? Memories. Our memories are stored and sorted while we are in deep sleep. Our blood pressure decreases, so it creates an offset for our vascular system. Our blood glucose decreases while we're sleeping, so it gives some offset to our digestion and our blood sugar regulation too. So sleep really is restorative. We need to sleep. I think we all know that, but sometimes we deprioritize it because all the things get involved, or we run into some of the problems we're going to talk about later. These slides were in reverse, so I'm going to look like I'm going to go backwards for a second, but what happens without sleep? Okay, again, if you guys in the on my Instagram live, if you guys want to hop over to the Zoom, the link is in my bio, you'll get to see these slides. Okay, so what happens without sleep? We are at greater risk. Heart attack. Why? Because our vascular system isn't getting its offset, right? Back to this one, right? What happens when we sleep? So we're at greater risk of heart attack because our vascular system isn't resting like it should. Diabetes, because our glucose and all of the that part of our endocrine system isn't getting an offset, isn't getting a chance to rest, right? Stroke, again, vascularity, comes back to vascularity. Obesity, our digestion is all off. We're not sleeping, so we're not digesting properly, so we're not breaking down things properly, so we're eating like garbage. Chronic inflammation, right? Our cells go like this all day long, right? We inflame all day. Our cells take in. And when we sleep, they regulate, they detox, they kind of come back to stasis. So if you're not sleeping, you're probably at higher risk for chronic inflammation, right? And then that dream state comes into like the more social emotional stuff, anxiety, depression, even dementia, because if that glymphatic system isn't kicking in our deep sleep, dementia, migraines, even lymphoma and cancers, because that's part of our excretory system, okay? So I always tell people sleep sustains life. I will never take that back. Without sleep, we literally degrade from the inside out, okay? So let's get us all some better sleep, okay? Starting now. Okie dokie. All right, so let's break ourselves down into two teams, because I usually find in my practice that we do fall into either team can't fall asleep or team can't stay asleep. Sometimes it's both, very often it's both, but usually once we kind of dig down, we can see that we are either in team can't fall asleep or we're in team can't stay asleep, okay? So team can't fall asleep kind of experiences racing thoughts at bedtime, restless body at bedtime. Sometimes you have physical discomfort. So if we have that inflammation, right? If we have that inflammation from not getting good sleep, it's going to have this kind of like downward spiral effect with some physical discomfort and inflammation. And the team can't fall asleep is more likely to resort to sleep aids, screen time, and alcohol at bedtime to help you fall asleep. And we're going to talk about why that's not going to be so sustainable and why that's leading us to team can't fall asleep, okay? They might fall asleep just fine. Perhaps you're using alcohol to fall asleep just fine, or perhaps you're using a sleep aid to fall asleep just fine. I put that in quotes, right? So we fall asleep just fine, but we wake up 3 or 4 hours after falling asleep, and then like maybe we wake up all night long, or maybe we go back to sleep, come back, wake up, fall asleep, come back, wake up. And team can't stay asleep also becomes more anxious about sleep as they watch the clock throughout the night. So if you are in any of these teams, just raise your hand, give me a little cheer, just be like, yes, I'm on a team. Yay. Okay, so in order to understand what really happens, we have to, hang on, I think, oh my gosh, sorry, one second. I think my slides got put into the wrong order. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. This is important anyway. How sleep works. Okay, so in order to understand why we have these problems, either at bedtime or in the middle of the night, we have to understand how sleep actually works in the brain, in the body. right? So this is an oversimplification, but I come back to it a lot. We have light sleep and we have deep sleep. When we fall asleep, we're in our light sleep, and then we dip into deep sleep, and then we come out into light sleep. And then we dip into deep sleep, and then we come into light sleep. All night long, we're going light, deep, light, deep, light, deep, right? So some food for thought, something that we kind of need to understand is that 0 people fall asleep at bedtime and wake up in the morning. That's a myth. We do not fall asleep at bedtime and miraculously just wake up in the morning. 0 people do that, right? We fall asleep, we get into deep sleep, we wake up. Okay, those light phases of sleep are where our dream phases are. So you'll know that you're having a light waking if you go, oh, that dream was so nice. No, keep your eyes closed. No. What was that dream about? What was that dream about? Oh, keep going. Because we had a nice dream and we want to connect that sleep cycle and we want to keep that wonderful dream going, right? That's a light waking, right? That's you've entered into your light phase, you've connected your sleep cycle to the next phase, and then you'll go into deep sleep. Or we go, oh, whew, it was just a dream. I can go back to sleep. Maybe we roll over, turn over, adjust our covers, adjust our pillow. Maybe we get up and go to the bathroom. Whatever that is, that happens in our light phases of sleep, and it happens multiple times per night. So 0 people actually sleep through the night. It's a myth. So it doesn't matter which team you're on. Sleep works the same for everyone. So I like to use this treasure chest image to describe what happens overnight. So the treasure box is whatever we are using to help us fall asleep. Maybe it's screen time. Maybe it's, melatonin. Maybe it's, we're in a certain position. For younger children, we see this a lot with sensory experiences. We see swinging, rocking, swaying, sucking, rocking, holding, all of that sensory experience to help them fall asleep. But what happens, because sleep is phasic, right? Because we go in and out of sleep all night long. If anything changes after sleep onset, if whatever we were using to help us fall asleep at bedtime is not present overnight, we're going to become way more awake and way more aware that we're not sleeping, or that we have to get back to sleep, or that something has changed. If we have a sleep crutch, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute, if we have something that's really helping us fall asleep here, but you notice that you're waking up all night long, it's very likely that whatever you're trying to do at bedtime is actually ruining your sleep all night long. The brain craves consistency. It's a fight or flight response when we wake up and something is different. So if we were to fall asleep in our bed but wake up on the couch, that's really alarming, right? That's alarming. That is like food for, oh my God, something's wrong, right? We're sleepwalking, something's happened. Same thing if we fall asleep with the lights off and then the lights are on in the middle of the night. Anytime something changes after we fall asleep in the environment or in our bodies, it's reason for our bodies to become more wakeful in the middle of the night in those light phases of sleep, because the brain is trying to make sense of why things changed. Okay, so it doesn't matter what team you're on, this could be potentially affecting what's going on. Okay, so let's talk about sleep crutches. And I have a slide that did get, I don't know where it went, but I do want to highlight here that we have to make an assumption that the sleep problem that you think you're having, whether it's I'm having trouble falling asleep or I'm having trouble staying asleep, that's not the actual problem. That's actually the symptom. Okay, we have to dig down to see why we're not falling asleep and not sleeping well, or why we're waking up all night long. Okay, we have to make the assumption that that's not the actual problem. The problem is something else, right? If you come to me and you say, Emily, I get migraines, like, yeah, I mean, I can offer you some Tylenol, the migraine will go away. But we in this holistic world, we know that you're either dehydrated or you have a gluten intolerance or a dairy intolerance, or maybe your thyroid is off. There's a bigger problem there that's causing those migraines, right? So having trouble falling asleep or having trouble staying asleep, that's the symptom. There's a bigger problem here. So let's talk about sleep crutches. what we do to help ourselves fall asleep. So the thing, like we just talked about in my little drawing, the thing that helps us fall asleep is actually keeping us awake all night long. Usually, podcast, right? You fall asleep with your podcast or your music. You wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh gosh, I need to turn my podcast on again, right? Anything you have to refresh or redo in the middle of the night is considered not really sustainable for sleep. And you're not getting your best sleep if you're refreshing your podcast all night long. Okay. Sleep crutches actually impede the connection of sleep cycles later in the night. They stop it. They send off that fight or flight. Something has changed. I can't sustain it. I had something at bedtime that was working, but it's not present anymore, or it's worn off, let's say melatonin or a sleep aid or something like that, or alcohol. It often results in wakings between 1 and 3 a.m. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why between 1 and 3 a.m. is the time when the body is most likely to wake disruptively. They think it's the transition with liver detoxing. Some people now are thinking it's the lymphatic system now shutting off because you've had your deep sleep. Nobody knows. But between 1 and 3 a.m. is a really popular time for humans to wake up. If you have babies at home, you know between 1 and 3 a.m. that's their hotspot. For us too, adults too. So examples of some sleep crutches that may be sabotaging your sleep. Booze or THC. So if you're smoking weed or having a couple glasses of wine to help you fall asleep, that's going to result in multiple night awakenings. That's going to not go well for you. Podcasts, music, falling asleep on the couch and then like moving yourself, having to move your physical body someplace else in the middle of the night, that's going to cause a disruptive awakening. Falling asleep watching TV, melatonin and sleep aids, and I will dive more into that in just a minute. But melatonin, I have a lot to say about melatonin. Okay. Oh, here's my important assumptions. When my things got out of order. We learn to adopt sleep crutches in an effort to solve the problem of sleep. Right? We have this problem falling asleep, so we go, you know what? I'm just going to listen to my podcast, or I'm just going to scroll the internet. I'm just going to like scroll until I feel sleepy, right? But really the core problem is actually, let's say, our anxiety or our racing thoughts or something else. There's something else happening that is causing this poor sleep. Additionally, these crutches become problematic over time. So therefore, addressing our ability to fall asleep in a healthy, sustainable fashion will result in more sustainable and overall better quality of sleep. I always tell people, bedtime is the most important time that really drives the quality of sleep we're going to get. It really determines how good or bad our sleep is going to be, is determined by what happens at bedtime. Okay, so let's talk about some of these sleep crutches and how we can get rid of them and so we can start sleeping better. This one isn't as popular, so I put it at the front. We'll kind of breeze through it. Caffeine and exercise. So exercise is obviously great. Exercise during the day helps sleep. It helps the circadian rhythm. Caffeine isn't bad as long as you turn it off early enough in the day. The problem with both of these things, caffeine and exercise, if you do them too close to the time sleep is expected, right? Within 2 hours or so, they raise our body temperature. They raise our heart rate. They increase our adrenaline, right? These are all things that are incompatible with falling asleep. You don't want a higher body temperature. You shouldn't have a higher body temperature. Our body temperature, like I said, needs to lower by almost a half a degree to a degree so that we can fall asleep, so that it can ramp up again later at night, and then our body temperature increases. If we have too high of a body temperature at sleep onset, we're not going to fall asleep. It raises our heart rate, increases adrenaline. They're stimulants. Exercise is a stimulant. Caffeine is a stimulant. Now, don't get me wrong, exercise is great. We need exercise. It really does help with sleep later on at night. We just have to time it right. We just can't do all the exercising right before bed. Our brain is more alert after we consume caffeine or engage in exercise. And an alert brain is not what we want at sleep onset. We do not want to be more alert as we're falling asleep. That is counterproductive. It's just not compatible with falling asleep. And caffeine hides. That's the thing. We have to be really aware. So some people are like, oh, I drink tea before I go to bed. That doesn't have any caffeine. And I go, Well, what kind of tea are you drinking? Because if you're drinking green tea or black tea or white tea, yeah, that's caffeine. You're sabotaging sleep. You have to make sure it says caffeine free. So do this instead. You guys can feel free to screenshot. Tongue twister. So caffeine free teas, it has to say caffeine free, not like decaf because caffeine hides, right? Caffeine free. So rooibos is great, chamomile is great, peppermint is great. Those are just kind of the most popular herbal teas that are caffeine free. Finish exercising at least 2 hours before sleep is expected. You can opt for stretching, you can opt for yoga, mindfulness and meditation. Gratitude is a great way to fall asleep. If you feel like you are just missing something, you guys practice gratitude, mindfulness, meditation before bed. That's going to be the best thing to help ease you into sleep because that actually triggers all of your happy hormones. Gratitude triggers happy hormones. We want that. Okay. Okay. This is a biggie. Stress and anxiety. Just a reminder for people who are live on Instagram, the link in my bio is in, the Zoom link is in my bio so you can see all the slides. So just go to the link in my bio and enter the Zoom that way. Okay, so stress and anxiety. This is for women especially, mostly the biggest problem with our sleep is that we just can't quiet our dang brains down, right? So let's investigate what is stress and anxiety. It's a hormonal chain reaction, okay? It releases adrenaline, it releases cortisol, it sends off our fight or flight responses, it sends off all the things that tell us we're in danger. How can we fall asleep if our brain perceives itself as being in danger? Like, no, you can't do that. If we think we're in danger, we're definitely not going to fall asleep. It's a hormonal chain reaction. It's a natural mechanism for coping, right? It gives us that fight or flight because we need to know whether we're being chased by a bear or, chased by a cricket, right? We have to be able to know the difference, right? And so this stress and anxiety response is key to our functioning, right? But when it goes off the rails, it goes off the rails. And we all know that. Okay, increases our cortisol level. We do not want increased cortisol at bedtime. Cortisol is great in the morning. Cortisol is actually the hormone that wakes us up in the morning, right? Unless we have like a 3-year-old, and then the 3-year-old wakes us up in the morning. But cortisol is what stimulates wakefulness. Okay, so yeah, it's a regulatory hormone for stress and anxiety, but it's also regulatory for sleep. We need some cortisol to wake up in the morning, just not to fall asleep at night. That's not the time for our cortisol. Stress and anxiety is corrosive over time. It's hard to shut down, right? It's the beginning of us seeking some of these alternative sleep assistance crutches. It's how we got here in the first place for most of us. So for most of us, we get stress and anxiety, we can't fall asleep, so we start taking melatonin, or we start consuming alcohol, or we start smoking weed, or we start listening to podcasts. Anything to quiet down those loud voices in our brains. Oh my gosh, those voices are very loud. The problem with those crutches are that they destroy sleep for the rest of the night. Right? So stress and anxiety is what gets us into the pickle sometimes of having these unsustainable sleep associations, these sleep dependencies that are actually robbing us of our sleep. But we're doing it because what are our tools? I'm going to talk to you about our tools. Young Living has a lot of tools. That's the good thing about being part of this community, right? We have tools that don't disrupt sleep later on at night. So stress and anxiety is a sleep stealer, mostly because we just can't quiet our brains down. So what can we do instead? Instead of quieting our brains through alcohol, THC, all the other things, melatonin, sleep aids, podcasts, music, anything to shut our brain down, we have to diffuse our grounding oils, our calming oils. That is the first step. The first step to quieting your brain is inhaling something that is going to ground us, to give us the ability to kind of root ourselves and say, shh, I got this, right? I got this. I can control my thoughts. Use your CBD. That's what I love about Young Living's CBD is that it doesn't contain THC. So here's the difference between something with THC, like a CBD with THC, or a sleep aid or melatonin. Those things fall into the category of actually pushing sleep. Now hear me out here. We don't have a sleep problem, remember. We have an anxiety problem. We don't need help falling asleep. Our brains are probably producing melatonin if we allowed them to. Our body is probably capable of falling asleep, but the anxiety gets in the way. So we don't need a sleep aid that's going to destroy us the rest of the night once we wake up and we're like, we need that sleep aid again. We need to relax our brain so we can calmly ease ourselves into sleep, to make our brains more receptive to sleep, to quiet down those voices, quiet down those very loud voices in a natural way that's actually easing us into sleep so that our natural mechanisms can do their jobs. So it's different. So a sleep aid is probably not what most people need. Most people need to shut the hell up in their brains at bedtime, right? So CBD is great for that. Our oils are great for that. Our grounding oils, our frankincense, okay? Frankincense. I can't say frankincense enough time. Magnesium. So magnesium and L-theanine. You guys use the Kid Sense Unwind. That's what I do sometimes if I can't shut my brain down. I just, grab an Unwind and just pop it in my mouth. It's the best. It's good for kids. It's good for adults. Magnesium also helps with all of those other sleep mechanisms. Our melatonin actually thrives off of magnesium, right? So if we want to enhance our melatonin production without actually producing or adding more melatonin onto the problem, magnesium is the thing that's actually going to close that gap, right? Magnesium will help with your melatonin production, your natural melatonin production, because you guys, you probably aren't low producers. There's a very low percentage of people in our population on the globe that are actually low melatonin producers. We all have melatonin, but we're just stopping it from producing because of our own stupidity. Our own bad choices are stealing our melatonin. Okay, so Kid Sense Unwind, magnesium, an Epsom salt bath is also great, same thing. Focal points, same thing, mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, put yourself someplace happy. Nature is great for that. Put yourself on top of a mountain, go look out onto the expanse of how beautiful this world is in your mind. Put yourself there and imagine how you feel. Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel happy? Do you feel at peace? Are you looking at greenery? Are you looking at an ocean? Are you looking at a calm desert? What are you looking at? Put yourself there. Put yourself there. Not in your conference with your children's teacher who's telling you that your child isn't performing well. Shut the committees down. Shh, the committees don't need to meet at night. They don't need to. Shh. Quiet them down. Mindfulness and meditation. Stay off social media. Social media is a trigger. It is a trigger. It almost never results in joy. It almost never results in gratitude. It almost never results in peace. So stay off social media. We're going to get to blue light in just a second. That's a fun one too. Smart screens. Okay. So by the way, if you have any questions about that, just put your question in a chat to me. Just remember to put your question to me. Again, if you guys are joining me live on Instagram, just join us on the Zoom so you can get your questions asked. That link is in my bio. Okay, smart screens. Oh Lord, where do I start with the smart screens and the scrolling? So smart screens, whatever form they take, if you're looking on a tablet, on your phone, on a Chromebook, on your computer, on your television, especially if you're watching TV in the dark, all of our smart screens now are LED light. Your screen is powered by LED technology. No way around it. An LED light suppresses melatonin production, stops it in its tracks. So if you're scrolling at night, right, and you're like, I'm just not tired yet, and suddenly it's 1 a.m, you have fallen victim to blue light exposure. stopping your melatonin production, stopping it in its tracks. You do not produce melatonin while you are viewing a smart screen. I don't care if you're on night mode. I don't care. I don't care if you have your dark mode on. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. If you're looking at a screen, you are exposed to blue light. It's going right into your eyeball holes and it's stopping your melatonin production. So if your problem is that you just can't fall asleep, you just feel like you're just up, and you're on a screen, the screen's probably the problem. The good thing is that it's an easy fix. Just stop doing that. Just stop doing it. No big deal. So easy. You won't feel tired. You're going to pass your awake threshold. So we all have a threshold of how long our body can tolerate being awake before it needs to sleep again. You will blow right past that if you're on your screen at night, especially if you're in the dark. Okay? Even if you have a brightness all the way down, it doesn't matter. If that's the only source of light coming into your eyeballs, it's stopping your melatonin production. No way around it. And what's funny is that a lot of people who view their screens, by the way, they start taking melatonin and then they're like, but it didn't work. I tried melatonin, but it doesn't work. Well, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay. Our rush of awake, when we pass our awake threshold, our body actually fills with these overtired hormones, which are cortisol and adrenaline, and our fight or flight hormones. It's our fight or flight response. It's as if we were on, like, out in the fields, like on the prairie, looking for our, our home or our cave or whatever. I'm using all the wrong words. But if you're like, traveling along looking for a cave and you don't see a cave, you don't think sleep is going to come. You don't have a safe place to sleep, right? This is a primal response here. You have to have some awake hormones so that you can actually get to your cave. You can't fall asleep on the tundra. You'll get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. I'm messing up all of my environments. I recognize that. So you want to avoid this rush of awake hormones that comes with being overtired, which is what happens when you push way past your threshold, and that's happening when we view our screens. It can also lead to late night eating. Right? How many of you have been up and it's like suddenly it's like 11 o'clock, 11:30, and you've been up and you're on your screen, you're like, gosh, why am I hungry? Well, because we eat on a cycle. We eat like, every 2 to 3 hours, right? We have some kind of, satiation. If you've been up for 4 hours and you ate dinner at 7 and now it's 11, yeah, you're going to get hungry again. Your body is going to think it's not time for sleep. Okay, so night eating, and then that causes all kinds of other problems too. So what can we do instead of our smart screens? Turn off our screens 1 to 2 hours. Actually, I just read an article 2 days ago, brand new out of Harvard, 2021. They actually recommend 2 to 3 hours without screen time before our sleep is expected. So if we know that, as an average age woman, let's say, who wakes up, I don't know, between 6:30 and 7 in the morning, around 6 in the morning, whatever, our bodies are going to be tired by 10:30, right? We need to sleep by 10:30. That's how it goes, right? So that means that we need to turn off our screen time by like 8. Or at least watch it in a very well lit room. But so the new recommendation is now actually 2 to 3 hours before sleep is expected. And we know sleep will be expected around 10:30 for most of us, right? Stop taking supplemental melatonin. It's not your problem. That's not your problem. First of all, we'll talk about melatonin in a second, but melatonin production is probably not your problem. The screen is your problem, okay? Obviously you're not producing melatonin while you're on your screen, so I guess technically it's your problem, but it's a controllable problem that we don't need to fill with melatonin, supplemental melatonin. Opt for brain-intensive tasks instead of screen time. Do crosswords, Sudoku, reading, a puzzle. Do something that's not screen-based. Someone asked me the other day about a Kindle. I guess it just depends on if you have that like Paperwhite. I think that Paperwhite thing is some kind of magnetic technology, so that's fine. That doesn't count as screen time. It's really these lit up screens. It doesn't matter if it's on dark mode, remember? Okay, so stop the screen insanity. It just does no good for anyone. It doesn't do anything for our psychosocial well-being. our psychological well-being. It doesn't do anything good for our melatonin production or our eyeball holes. It's just not good. Macular problems, all the stupid things. Okay. Alcohol. Alcohol's bad. Okay. I understand. It's nice to have a glass of wine with dinner. That's actually not the problem. The problem is when we feel like we need to use it for sleep. That's when it becomes a problem. You see how much like longer this slide is than all the other slides. Okay, alcohol consumption. We're gonna go through this because I know time's ticking. Okay, alcohol is a depressant. Yes, it does slow down our system. So yeah, it does help with sleep. Okay, but it can assist with falling asleep, but it suppresses REM sleep, which is the first 2 phases of sleep. It stops it. It makes it like longer into the night. So we spend way more time. I have a little diagram in the next slide. I'll explain it to you, but it suppresses REM sleep. It delayed or suppressed REM disrupts the entire cycle. It shortens the total length of the actual sleep cycle. So we spend all this time trying to fall asleep, and then the brain is like, oh God, deep sleep, light sleep, all the phases, dreams, okay. Whoa, like it's just too much, right? So it disrupts our circadian rhythm. It increases our night wakings. There's a 24% increase in sleep disruptions after 2 servings of alcohol, so 2 glasses of wine. Okay, and it takes about 4 hours to completely pass through the liver. So alcohol in the liver is what leads to night wakings and the extra sugars, right? So we talked in the very beginning, the liver needs to detox, our body detoxes while we're sleeping. If we are introducing additional toxins and alcohol and extra sugars, those are toxins, if we're introducing extra of that at bedtime, our liver is going to be working like triple time to detox that, and that causes night wakings. And we wake up sweaty, and we wake up disoriented, and we wake up not feeling so hot, and then most of us are up the rest of the night. Now, if you can sleep in the morning, like if you don't have kids and you can like sleep until 10 o'clock, well, all right, that's probably a thing, but most of us have alarm clocks that we don't set. Okay, so here's a graphic of that. You spend more time there in your light sleep, and you basically bypass deep sleep. You basically like deep sleep. Okay, let's try to detox our brain. Let's try to detox our body. Let's try to regenerate some cells. And oops, like now our liver has taken over, and now we're totally disrupted. So we spend more time in this really like kind of light sleep. And we all know that feeling after a night of drinking. We've been out with some friends, whatever. It's okay. We have dinner, we drink too much. And then we like kind of lull into this nice cozy sleep. And then we're up and we're kind of sweaty and groggy, but then we go back to sleep. But then our dream phases are really long. That means that we're just spending all this time in light sleep and not a whole lot of time in deep sleep. So more time spent in light sleep means less time for the brain to detox, less time for cells to repair, less time to do all the things. Okay, so do this instead. First, let's just breathe and take a moment of silence because wine is good. Wine is good, friends. Wine is good. So moment of silence as we mourn the loss of our nightly glass of wine before bed. You can still enjoy it, but enjoy it at dinner time. You know, habits to change are hard. Cutoff blue is about 4 hours before sleep is expected. So like I said, for women, sleep should be expected usually around 10:30. So we're going to cut it off early, like around 6. Usually if you have a glass of wine with dinner, it's totally fine. Limit to 1 serving earlier in the evening. Special occasions are special occasions, guys. Enjoy them. Enjoy the special occasions. We just had the holidays. There's probably a lot of drinking. No big deal. It's okay. Things happen. We just want to get the train back on the tracks, right? We don't want to be using alcohol as the sleep crutch that we're using every night. It's just not sustainable. Opt again for CBD, magnesium, or essential oils instead. If you need to fall asleep and you're trying to quiet down the committees that are meeting in your brain and you're using alcohol to do that, opt for our Calm Roller is amazing. Again, the Kid Sense magnesium is perfectly fine for adults. And all of your oils, use your oils, use your oils, use your oils. Frankincense, frankincense, frankincense. I like frankincense for sleep. Grounding oils. Okay, let's talk about melatonin. It's not the problem. Your melatonin production is probably not the core problem. If you are not vitamin D deficient, you probably do not need to be taking a vitamin D supplement, although most of us are deficient. If you have, a deficiency in iron, you want to take an iron supplement. Of course, you don't need extra iron, right? Melatonin is no different, but it's a hormone, right? It is a hormone at the end of the day. It is meant to supplement your melatonin when your melatonin is not producing at the right time. So is there a percentage of our population of our globe that is melatonin deficient and doesn't produce melatonin? It's a small percentage, and usually it affects people with pituitary adenoma or pituitary trauma. So if you haven't had pituitary adenomas, or if you haven't had trauma to your pituitary, you are probably a totally sufficient melatonin producer, and you probably don't need a melatonin supplement. Okay, it's probably not your core problem. Plus, you're going to need more and more and more over time. Eventually, your normal dosing isn't going to be enough. But that's just the trajectory of supplemental melatonin when melatonin production isn't our problem. See, if melatonin was actually our problem, you could stay on the same dose forever. You would figure out what dose is good for you, and the dose would never change. But we are good producers. So we find ourselves needing more and more and more over time. Okay, so it is unclear what it can cause night awakenings too. Oh, I almost forgot about that. So again, pushes our brain to sleep. Our brain gets pushed to sleep in a way that is not sustainable the rest of the night. And then when we wake up and there's no more melatonin supplement in our body, then we're like, I don't know what to do now, right? The committees are meeting and all the things are happening and we can't put ourselves back to sleep. We end up taking more melatonin. So it can cause disruptive night awakenings if we don't actually need it. It's unclear what the correct dosing is, and it increases over time. Did you know that melatonin is only by prescription everywhere in the world except the United States? Just food for thought. There's really limited research on long-term effects and exposure to melatonin. Now, melatonin has its place, right? Melatonin has its place. We need it when we are jet lagged. If we're jet lagged, take all the melatonin. Take your Immupro, guys. Take your Immupro when you are traveling and you have jet lag. Or if you've been up a whole night with a sick child and your body is just like totally out of whack, you might need some help with your melatonin later on in the night because your rhythm is going to be all off, right? If you, during the time change, sometimes we have trouble sparking off that melatonin. If we've had some time changes, falls in the same category as jet lag. So there is a place for melatonin in our world and in our bodies. Sometimes we do need that to help adjust our circadian rhythm to get back on track. But it probably isn't the thing that we need to be taking every single night to help us sleep. Okay. So here's how melatonin works. It's kind of the opposite a little bit of alcohol, is that we actually pass right through our light phases of sleep. So whereas the alcohol, you spend more time in your light phase of sleep, with melatonin and sleep aids in general, THC works the same way too, is it actually pushes us to sleep. We spend less time in that light phase and more time in the deep phase of sleep, and then it wears off, and then we're awake all night long. It's all bad. I tell really bad news. Sometimes I feel bad doing these presentations. We need a balance of all the things. We need our light sleep and our deep sleep. What a lot of people report who use sleep aids, where we're spending more time in deep sleep than light sleep, we see a greater increase in depression, a greater increase in anxiety and worry and discomfort during the day, because we haven't had that time in our light phase of sleep to sort out our emotions. We need to dream. Everybody dreams. We don't remember them, but we need that. That's how our, the psychosocial side of our brain, that's how our psychological brain figures out our day and sorts things into the right categories. Okay, All right, so instead of that, there are plenty of alternatives to aid falling asleep, right? If we have trouble falling asleep, we can use our CBD. You guys, that calm roller on those nights when my committees meet and they are yelling at each other, and I'm having an imaginary fight with someone on social media who hasn't done that, right? Who doesn't fight in their brain with people they've never met. Oh, I should have commented that thing. Oh, man. First of all, let that go. These people are not worth engaging with, but that's a whole other Zoom, isn't it? Okay, so CBD quiets the brains. It turns down the volume on those voices. It lets us just calm, okay? It's not a sleep aid. It just helps ease our brain into that quiet space so we can practice gratitude and mindfulness and think of happy thoughts and get to our focal points, right? Magnesium, frankincense. If you're looking for specific oil recommendations, frankincense, blue tansy, valerian, chamomile, those are great sleep oils. Anything that's grounding, really. But that blue tansy, you guys, that blue tansy is anti-anxiety, right? That stuff's going into our little cells and being like, I'm so happy that I feel good now. Blue tansy is great. L-theanine, so your magnesium supplement. Vitamin D during the day, right? We need vitamin D during the day. If you are deficient, if you're not getting enough vitamin D, like all of us right now in the wintertime, take a vitamin D supplement in the morning. Vitamin D helps with sleep. We do need the sunlight. We do need the sun's rays, but just timed right, right? We don't want to be looking at our smart screen and our brains thinking that it's still daytime, because that's what blue light does. It tricks the brain into thinking it's still daytime. It's the same wavelength as the sun. We need the sun's rays, but not at 10 o'clock at night into our eyeballs. Adjust your bedtimes. Adjust what time you're expecting to go to sleep. Most of us need to sleep by 10:30. Okay, so get into bed at 9:30 and do some crosswords or Sudoku or some mindfulness or some stretching. Put your oils on, put your CBD on, drink a chamomile tea, take your magnesium supplements. Ease yourself into sleep. Be good to yourself, you guys. Just be good to yourself is the bottom line. And look at all the previous tips. I like to end this with the fact that sleep starts in the morning. Okay? Our entire wake sleep rhythm is not driven by sleep. It's driven by the cortisol that spits out and starts to fire in the morning when we wake up. Okay? So there are lots of things that you can do during the day, in the mornings even, that can help you sleep better at night, right? Daytime supplements that support sleep. Let me go through these, because if you are having trouble with sleep, if you've sat through this whole thing and you're like, well, none of that applies. I don't do screen time. I do stretching. I do all I do these things. I do that thing, but I still can't sleep. If you've sat through this whole thing and you haven't found anything that you've identified with, you have a daytime problem. This slide is for you. Your anxiety, your wellness, your deficiencies, whether they're vitamin or gluten intolerances or cell regeneration or cell absorption or all of that stuff, that's going to impact your sleep too. So my best recommendation, if you've sat through this whole thing and you haven't found any nuggets that apply to you, start here. Start here in the morning with your Ningxia Red. Ningxia, 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 and Ningxia. Your super vitamin D. Okay, if you feel like you don't get enough outside time, you might be deficient. So try vitamin D in the morning. Cortistop. Guys, regulate our cortisol. Let's regulate that cortisol. Cortistop, I think we all agree, is kind of a misnomer. It doesn't stop your cortisol from producing. That's not what it does. But it infuses your body with all the things that are going to help regulate that cortisol production and that cortisol level, so that you don't feel like you're here and here and here and here and here and here and like a crazy person, right? So Cortistop, multigreens, Life9, get that gut in check. Those of you who are have been using Young Living products for a really long time, I hear you. I know there's 1,000 other things I could have put on this list. I know that. I wanted to find a place to start. These items are the best place to start. This is going to be your during the day rescue, and you're going to see your sleep improving overnight. if you make these changes during the day and if you add these things to your daily regimen. Okay. We are at the Q&A portion of the day. Here's my contact information. You can screenshot it if you want. I'm Emily at ReadySetSleep.com. I'm on Instagram over at ReadySetSleep with an _. I'll be taking the Q&As. I'm going to stop my screen share. And I'm going to return to the world of the peoples. And I'm going to look at my chat. Hold on, I want to see all the peoples. Where's my chat? Okay. So, let me just see. I used to be falling asleep for more thing asleep. Okay. What about autistic children who can't fall asleep due to sensory issues and sensitivity? Is there a solution for them? This is the same thing. You are going to find that your child with autism, and also ADHD, ADD, ADHD, any kind of intellectual disability, developmental disability, what happens is they can't fall asleep. What really is the problem, probably, is that we're either expecting sleep at the wrong time. Maybe we're trying to put our 16-year-old to sleep at 8 o'clock. Well, that's not going to work. They're not going to be tired at 8 o'clock. They're a full-grown, post-pubescent teen. We have to put them to bed at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. So sometimes with special needs, we have to remember to take sleep needs into consideration. How much sleep does my child need at 5 years old, at 7 years old, at 10 years old, and make sure we're offering sleep at the right time. And then offering these calming sensory activities leading up to bed. They will do well with some quiet play too. Unfortunately, most kids nowadays, I'm just going to say kids, but especially on the autism spectrum, are very screen addicted. It's a dopamine rush. I mean, it's hard to quit, right? I can't quit you. Screen time because dopamine is what the kids are watching. They're watching fun YouTube stuff. They're not scrolling social media like we are. They're on YouTube. They're looking at, science experiments, and they're looking at cooking, and they're looking at cartoons and anime and like all the other things. Dopamine, happiness, happy. So we want to make sure that our kids with special needs aren't getting access to their screens late into the night either, right? So sometimes that's a problem on the autism spectrum as well. I do have a whole wealth of information, obviously, on the autism spectrum piece, but you can also start with those daytime things as well. Supplementation is going to be really important for kids on the spectrum too. Sometimes their diets aren't that well-rounded, so we have to figure out kind of, where they are. Sensitivities too, food sensitivities are not uncommon, obviously, with kids on the spectrum, so we want to dive into that too. But usually it has more to do with rhythm. Does your kid have a bedtime routine? Even if they're 24, you guys, we all need bedtime routines. All of us. And they should come in the same order every night. We need bedtime routines. Why? Not because our 6-year-old needs to read 20 minutes every night. That is not what the bedtime routine is for. The bedtime routine is not for, oh, this is our time for bonding and whatever. Like, it can be, yes, but that is not the scientific reason why bedtime routines are important. Bedtime routines are important because they signal melatonin production. So if we do our bedtime routines in the same order every night, it doesn't have to be like 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes, because then you're just adding anxiety onto your bedtime routine. But if you say to myself, you know what, I'm going to hop in bed at 9 with my cup of chamomile tea, I'm going to read for a half an hour, and then I'm going to put my oils on, and then I'm going to shut my lights out. That's a bedtime routine. That's a bedtime routine. And it kind of comes in the same order. And from the time you get into your bed, I'll say even from the time you brush your teeth before you get into bed, or even potentially, if you're really good about rhythm, from the time you start making that chamomile tea, your brain is going to go, sleep is coming. Okay? Our brains are amazing, you guys. Our brains are freaking amazing. So we need to send those signals. And so sometimes for kids on the spectrum, the signals are like not like super exactly clear. So establishing that rhythm before sleep is expected is going to take you a long way. Okay. Kari says, oof, yes, I can never sleep after I work out. Oh, herbal teas. Yes, Kari, thank you for the Young Living herbal teas. Yes, the turmeric tea is freaking amazing. Okay, what about the seasoned adults that have lost melatonin? Don't we need? Yes, okay. So over the age of 50, we do slow our melatonin production. Yes, over the age of 50, we do have a harder time. We also need less sleep. So menopause, and maybe Kari, we need to do a menopause and sleep Zoom, because I think we have some people who might be really interested in that fun time of life when everything dries up and our vaginas turn inside out. We can't sleep and we don't produce melatonin and sleep sucks and all that kind of stuff. Yes, melatonin supplementation can help over the age of 50. What I would encourage to avoid this slope of needing more and more and more melatonin over time is to try it out for a couple nights and see if it works. If it's helping and you're not experiencing middle of the night wakings. So just experiment with yourself. It's okay to try things out. Take a melatonin supplement, see how your night goes. If your night goes swimmingly and you have an amazing sleep and you're over 50, I would say that you probably needed that supplementation because melatonin decreases. It doesn't like stop 100%. That's kind of a misnomer. But it kind of is a little more fickle over the age of 50 and after menopause. So don't be afraid to try things out, right? So, melatonin's not the devil. I may have made it seem that way. It's not the devil, but listen to yourself, right? Listen to your body. If you are taking a melatonin supplement and you're sleeping like crap overnight, stop taking the melatonin supplement. If you're taking a melatonin supplement and you're sleeping beautifully, don't worry about it. It's working, right? Do what works. Do what works for your body, right? Do what works for your body. Look, if you're drinking a half a bottle of wine every night before you go to bed and you're happy with your sleep, I don't think you'd be here in this Zoom right now if that was the case. but if that's working for you, let it work for you. It's probably not working for you though. Okay. I like how you said, by the way, Cynthia, seasoned adults. I adore you. Okay. How to apply this to an 18-year-old? Okay, so we did this. He's been taking melatonin. Okay, I think we talked about that. Kid sense, yes, definitely kid sense. He won't sleep in bed. Yeah, I mean, designating a sleep spot is really important. If you don't have a place where sleep always happens, you're gonna always probably have trouble with sleep. If it's the couch, let it be the couch. That's fine. If it's on the floor, that's not terrible either. But there should be a designated sleep spot. You should have a designated sleep space that you go to fall asleep, right?
Can I just say something?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
but that's
okay.
my question. That's my question. And the thing is, so it mainly you're talking routine, right? Because he has a bed, he just won't sleep in it. He has a couch in his bedroom and he sleeps on that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Look, who cares, you guys? As long as sleep is happening, right? I know, and I get this question all the time about co-sleeping. I get this question about, beds in the same room. Should they sleep with siblings, not with siblings? Twins, should they share a bed, not share? There is no right answer except the answer that leads to better sleep. Do sleep upside down. I don't care. If you're sleeping through the night, sleep through the night. I don't care where it is. It's funny, this is like 8 years ago, a family called me in because they were so upset because their young autistic son was sleeping in the dog bed in the room. I'm like, is he sleeping all night? Yeah. Why am I here? If he's sleeping all night and you're sleeping all night and everyone's kumbaya happy, who am I to come in and be like, you should sleep in a bed? If you're sleeping fine on a sack of straw on the floor, which is pretty much how humans slept for like thousands of years, you're sleeping through the night like that, great. I always look at what is actually happening. I'm not here to pass judgment. What is actually happening? If melatonin is working for you and it helps you sleep all night long and you're having great sleep, keep doing that thing. Don't listen to me. Keep doing that thing, right? If he's sleeping on the couch, but he sleeps on the couch through the night and doesn't disrupt you and has great sleep after sleep onset, it's not broke, don't fix it, right? That's my recommendation. Look at what's working and look at what's not working. Figure out which piece of the puzzle is broken and then work backwards from there. Okay, Christina Rothstein, the blue fans, tansy facial, yes. Okay. Let me see if there's any questions directly for me. Okay. So many rules around sleep, like wherever you sleep the best, just let people freaking sleep. Exactly, right? Yeah, I mean, Kari, you're 100% right. Like there are a lot of social constructs that we kind of adopt over time. Like, look, I see it all the time. Women get shaming for co-sleeping. Women get shamed for not co-sleeping. Like, who the fuck cares? Sorry. If you guys are sleeping, just fucking sleep. That is really the bottom line here. That is really the bottom line. I don't care how we sleep. Obviously, safe sleeping standards, blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming that you guys can all take your grains of salt and know that you don't sleep on top of your child or after you've, had 3 bottles of wine and been out the whole night, that you don't put your infant on, on your breast and fall asleep on them. But like, assuming that we are all smart and accountable humans and individuals, we make our own choices, and we just need to look at what is working and what is sustainable, right? Sustainability is also very important, right? What's working, what's sustainable. You guys can unmute yourself, because I know we're kind of like over time, and we've been chatting a while, and I am going to stop my live actually here. Goodbye. Come over on the Zoom if you want to see me, just so I can see what time it is. Okay, get out of there. I don't even know what time it is. I can't see anything. Oh, it's 10:30. Okay. Oh, good. We're not that over. Okay. Well, I can definitely stick around. Allison, you're very welcome. If you guys want to unmute yourself, that's totally fine. You can unmute yourself and ask any questions you want. I have some time to stick around, so if we just want to open it to conversation, that's fine. I will expand I don't even know how to expand this. I don't know how to see people. Kari has to go to the dentist. Okay. If there are no other questions, this will be saved. It's being recorded. It'll be in Mighty Networks. I'm happy to answer any questions. Come follow me over on Instagram. I like to have fun with reels. Always dropping some truth bombs, always dropping some wellness tips and sleep tips. And just let me know what you guys need along the way. I hope you all get more sleep. And please DM me if you, when you try these things out and when you see your sleep improved. I like to hear success stories and hear what's working too for you guys and your families and all of that. So be in touch. All right, guys. If you have I'll stick around for a half second. I saw someone look like they were about to have a question. Just unmute yourself if you have a question. Otherwise, I'm going to hop off. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see y'all later.